Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to day two. The week two of our class. But before we begin, I would just want to hear from every one of us how we performed during the week. Probably based on the lectures, the videos you watched, the reflective notes, the journals. Anyone willing to share with us how you were able to navigate the data privacy landscape? You could just unmute yourself and speak if you wish to share with us how you felt during the week with respect to the data we have been talking about. Please, anyone. We looked at the foundation of data ethics and we had quite a very interesting discussion on the LMS, and a lot of us posted on the discussional forum and the reflective platform. So we need to hear it on this video call, your comments, your thoughts regarding the class or what you learned. Okelo, please, you can go ahead. Just unmute and go ahead.
Listen. The topic again of the fairness in the material that
Okay, thank you very much. So, any other person, any other would love to share with us? Good evening, Mr. Iberia. Good evening. Yeah, loud and clear. Yes, we can, we can, we can. Thank you very much. Any other one? Any other person, please? Okay, so I'll share mine. So personally, after the class, I still went ahead to go through the same materials we all went through, and I took quite a lot of steps. If you recall, in the class, we said when dealing with data, we should only request for absolutely what is necessary. For absolutely what is necessary. So I took a cue from that, and I had to analyze quite a lot of forms on the various systems and websites I've been managing. And in analyzing that, I discovered that there are some information we usually require from our students and other providers, from our students majorly, which are not absolutely necessary at that particular time. So we went ahead to take some decisions regarding audit of information which we usually require. And I think between that last week and now, we have expunged some critical information that we don't actually need for our purpose. For instance, on our admission forms, majorly we require some personal information such as maybe your village, your hometown, lot of information that is not needed for their admissions purposes to the program which they applied for. But we just require those information because we felt it's meant to be part of the form. So after the class, I actually did some personal audits, removing all those information that are not needed. So I also learned that. So for today, we will be looking at a very important concept, very important concept that has to do with data ethics, and we'll be looking at data governance, privacy, consent, and data rights. It has two parts, and as part of the class, we would also be looking at a video on WhatsApp. It was posted on the LMS. We'll be looking at what WhatsApp did relating to data governance. And when we are looking at data governance, one question we would ask ourselves is this: who is meant to control our data? How private should data be? And as we go along the class, we discover that an organization with strong governance is actually the organization that takes privacy seriously. Not really because the law actually mandates them to take the privacy seriously, but because the organization have built the structure, the rules, and the processes that actually makes responsible data handling the default unit. So we'll see several frameworks that has to do with governance when it comes to data. And I plead with every one of us, once we are done with the class, if you miss any point, please do well to watch the videos. After watching the videos, you will read the materials which we recommended. Then also you go through the discussional forum. We have a very interesting topic in our discussional forum for this week, and the title of our discussional forum is real consent, that is real data consent ever possible online? It's a very interesting topic. Is it very possible to establish consent for data online? When you go through the instructions, we'll be looking at a very popular happenings in our space where you are installing a software, you're about to use a product, and you read all the privacy laws, and the next thing you are seeing is agree or reject. So in our discussion, we'll be looking at how exactly do agreeing or disagreeing leads to consent in the use of our personal data. And when we go through that discussion, we'll be required to take a position. You take the position, drop it in the group, and you as well try to comment on the position others take on that particular area, on that particular topic. After that, you would also have to visit the reflective journal and write a personal encounter and a personal story regarding data privacy. Finally, you'll be required to complete the week's quiz. I plead with every one of us to turn in the assignment on time and as at when due. So let's quickly go through our slides for today. We'll be looking at the division of data governance. We'll also see several frameworks, and we'll see the governance structures. We now go to the part 2 that has to do with privacy foundations, informed consent, and data subject rights. What is data governance? How do we define data governance? Data governance simply refers to the system of decision rights, accountability, policies, and processes that ensure that data is managed at an organizational level, that ensure that data is actually taken as an asset. Data is managed accurately, securely, consistently, and in compliance with every legal and ethical framework which we already discussed in the first class. In data governance, we are not actually referring to IT infrastructure at this point. We are not really referring to the IT guys, database administrators, and data governance is not actually a one-time project. It is meant to be an ongoing project in an organization. Data governance is meant to be an ongoing project in an organization. It's meant to be the processes we take all through, the rules we take, the rules we make in data guiding our entire activities. That has to do with data governance in an organization. We are talking about how data quality is defined, how we measure data, and how we maintain data quality. Data governance also includes the classification of data. Based on the kind of data we generate in our organization, we need to be able to classify those data. When we classify the data, the next question we'll be asking ourselves is who is responsible for such maintenance of the data? Classification of data, then now setting responsibility and accountability. Who in the organization is responsible for retaining data? Who is responsible for disposing of data? And who is responsible when there's an issue, when data problem arises? Finally, data governance has to do with how data usage aligns with legal and ethical requirements. We have three major data governance frameworks. One, we have the DEMA, which we actually call Data Management Body of Knowledge. So the DEMA DBOK framework actually focuses on data, a comprehensive data management that is looking at both the quality, architecture, security, governance, metadata, and master data. Who can help us explain what do we mean by metadata? We hear about it a lot. Those of us in the digital space, advertising space, we hear all about metadata. Who can simply define or explain in your own terms what you understand by metadata? Metadata, anyone please? Metadata. Can anyone assist us? Metadata. Yeah, you can. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Okay, let me give you an example. When you upload pictures on Facebook and you tag your city, or you tag your location, or you tag people, you are actually providing metadata to that pictorial data on your Facebook. So metadata actually simply helps you to provide context to location of data. For instance, file size is a function of metadata. Once you have a video on your system and you hover with the video, you see the file size, you see the date created, you see the format. That has to do with metadata. So metadata actually helps data to be easily located. It helps data to be searchable, and it also helps systems to understand how to process data. For instance, data could be in text form and could be in video form. What helps us understand and if this is text or video is what we call metadata. The way you name your files on your laptop when you're organizing the files so that you can easily search out the files and the folders. Those are keywords and metadata you are actually giving to that file, and it is a very important concept in data management under the DAMAC governance framework. So we also have the very popular framework known as the COBIT. Why COBIT is very popular? Because COBIT is usually the standard most times the IT auditors use to evaluate organizational stance and posture on data. We hear of COBIT, COBIT, COBIT. COBIT simply means control objectives for information technologies. So under the COBIT framework, we are simply saying aligning IT strategy with business objectives. So in organizations, when we have to go into ISO standards relating to data, COBIT framework would always come into being, because COBIT simply mean how strong is your data control law in your organization? How compliant are you when dealing with data? When you get clients' data, how do you save the data? For how long do you secure such data? When data is in transit, remember last class I talked to us about DLP, data loss prevention, and I also hinted us about various ways of data movement. We have data in transit, we have data in motion, and we also have when data is about to be destroyed. What are the rules and the principles you follow when working with data? That has to do with COBIT framework, and it is usually used, like I've already said, in finance, healthcare, and governance sectors that have heavy compliance requirements. Lastly, we have the DGI framework. DGI simply means Data Governance Institute Model, and this focuses specifically on governance of data, which has to do with decision rights, accountability, and data stewardship. So the DGI is simply referring to accountability and stewardship of data. Who owns data? Who owns data? What is the right structure for managing data? And this is actually best for organizations that are establishing data for the very first time. Now we have 4 pillars of a data governance structure. Remember, one of the purposes of doing this course, of partaking in this course, you actually want to know how well can you safeguard data in your organization? How well can you develop policies regarding data? Before you develop policies regarding data, you have to understand that we have several pillars of data governance structure. The first one is always people and roles. When we are relating data to security, which is majorly always the case, data security and privacy, I would always say that the weakest line when it comes to cybersecurity flaws is people. The weakest line is not the IT infrastructure. The weakest line is not actually the systems you procure, but the weakest line in any data security breach is people, and the strongest defense is also people. People make those rules. People and policies, they go hand in hand. People is very important. People and rules is very important when we are about to establish a strong data governance structure. People actually constitute what we call the Data Governance Council. In organizations, it is always proper that there must be a unit or teams in charge of data governance. They are the ones that now set up the rules and they make the decisions regarding data. People must be responsible for ownership and accountability of data in specific data domains. For instance, in the healthcare sector, where we have to deal with a lot of patients' data. Remember, patients' data is always treated with utmost privacy. The data the medical doctor has access to is not the same data the lab scientist would have access to. The data of a patient that the accountant is meant to have access to is not the same data the emergency services would have access to. Let's take, for instance, if we develop an healthcare platform for a particular hospital, and on the ERP software which you develop, you don't set these rules properly. Now, when the patient goes to make a payment for a particular procedure, the accountant is just meant to see the procedure that has been imputed or recommended by the lab scientist, sees the amount, and gets the money from the patient. But if the right structure is not in place and the right policies and rules is not in place, it will mean that the accountant would eventually even see the blood group of the patient, genotype of the patient, the ailment the patient is suffering from, and several information that are not meant to be seen by the account office. So there must be data ownership and accountability for specific data domains. Then there's what we call data stewards. Data stewards have to be those in charge of management of data assets on a daily basis. Who are those in charge of the hard disks? Who are those in charge of the servers? Who are those in charge of the simple WhatsApp platform that is being used to interact with your clients? Who are those in charge of the email platform that is being used to interact with your client? It's very important that we define the roles of the people in charge of generating data from our clients. We also have to do, there's another thing under people and rules called data custodians. Now, very importantly, we look at policies. Policies and standards is a very important pillars. They are important pillars in data governance structures. When we are talking about policies, policies have to do with classification of data based on the sensitivity levels. Data of healthcare sensitivity must be applied using this policy, and this is the same policy that helps us to also know about data retention rules. How long should we retain clients' personal data? How long should we retain clients' private data? How long should we retain data on their health brochure even after they have left my healthcare facility? You begin by doing that after you have classified data based on the sensitivity level. Now, we have also talked about access control. I explained that access control has to do with who sees what and why should they see it. We also have to do with data processes. Now, when there's an issue relating to data, what is the escalation matrix? What is the resolution matrix? If data breach have occurred, what is the process for resolution of that particular data breach? What is the processes for new data collection? What kind of forms do you use? Are you going to use a free form like Google? Are you going to use a secure form that is hard-coded by programmers? When data breach occurs, who should be notified first? Now, the next thing we have to do is, the next pillar has to do with technology and metrics. Technology and metrics. When we're looking at technology and metrics, we are now talking about the systems that are developed for handling data. For instance, we are talking about data quality dashboards. Probably you have employed a data analyst to develop a dashboard using Power BI. What is that dashboard showing to you? The number of clients that have visited your healthcare facility. Let's assume you built a customer support portal. The dashboard could contain how many customers have logged the complaints, how many complaints have been resolved, how many complaints are pending, what complaints actually achieved the SLA, service level agreements, SLA of 2 hours, SLA of 3 hours. Maybe accounting complaints has to be resolved within 1 hour or 2 hours. Other kind of complaints could take 48 hours. escalation metrics. What dashboards have been developed? What scorecards have you developed for yourself that has to do with data? There must be a scorecard and a dashboard that used to evaluate your position on data governance. And very, very important, there must be audit logs when dealing with data. In fact, now any system or any process I'm part of developing an IT system, I always insist on building in an audit log. What do we mean by audit log? Audit log is this. Mr. Daniel logged into the system by 9 a.m. to take to begin the morning shift. What was my shift? My shift has to do with making sure that all the customers that call in on the customer care line is attended to. There must be an audit trail that shows the exact time I logged in, that shows when I logged out, that shows what I clicked, that shows the folders I visited on a software. There must be an audit log. Unlike a user computer system, so you can quickly open a folder, close a folder, open a file, shut down a file, and nobody can come in and trace your log of activities. In an organization, majorly on a system, there must be an audit trail. You should be able to ascertain who touched a particular data and at what point and at what time was that data visited on that particular platform. Before we visit the part 2 of our course, I would love to entertain questions. Please, do we have any question? We have talked about the 4 pillars of data governance. We have talked about data governance framework. Do we have any question, or do we have some experiences you would love to share regarding the first part of our lecture series?